Hey,
And I'm not sure.
it's got your name on there.
Pretty amazing, isn't it? So. Hey, Tommy, how you doing?
Okay, y'all ready?
Seen better days.
Ready, Tom?
Yeah.
Good evening. Today is Wednesday, November 20th, 2019. I'd like to call this evening's City Council meeting to order. If you could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I have the roll call?
Councilmember Boff. Here. Councilmember Stimmel.
Here.
Councilmember Williams.
Present.
Councilmember Strobehn.
Here.
Councilmember Cerveny.
Here.
Mayor Thornton.
Here. Thank you. Next is the consent agenda. If there are no requests for any items to be removed, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have citizens' public comment. If anyone would like to address the council, please step up to the podium. If you'll give us your name and address, and limit your time to 3 minutes.
My name's Melinda Massa,
Yep, you're good.
and I live at 5305 Northeast 384th Street, West End, Washington. I am just going to let you know all about the Christmas Festival for West Center this year. It is on December 8th, and that will be the Christmas tree lighting. We have the laser light show and meet and greet Santa. We'll have all the same festivities that we had last year with the middle and the high school band, the choir brass ensemble, and we'll have the nativity scene with Curly and his friends. And we're still going to have the gingerbread contest, so if anybody would like to sign up for that, hopefully you received a registration form for that. If not, let us know. And you can contact me at mmazna@gmail.com and let me know if you'd like to sign up for that. And the event will be from 5:30 till 8 o'clock p.m.
Oh, great.
We do have the Santa House calls Friday, December 7th, or 6th, sorry. And we have the center, are you pulling us? Are you doing that, or?
I'm not doing anything,
Oh, okay.
no. That's doesn't.
You can email LC North Pole. Is it W? Sorry, I am like.
If you go to the website, you can fill out the
Yeah,
form on there.
go to the website and just fill out your information, and we will make sure you get on the list.
LaCenterNorthPole.com.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. See. that's
Or excuse me,
the-
LCNorthPole.com. Yeah. So,
Okay.
okay.
All right. Thank you.
No, thank you. And Melinda, she is the chairperson for the Christmas Festival, and she's doing a great job pulling this all together, working with volunteers and city staff to get this program together. We do have the website on the screen right now. Councilmember Stoben's firm has been instrumental in getting this done. Thank you for that. So this is primarily for Santa's house calls, right, Melinda? So you can go to this website, and if you would like Santa to visit your house, you fill out the form, and Melinda will get a copy of that. And it's actually the fire department fire district is actually coordinating all that, but this is where you go to get that done, and we've got it up and running, and it's great. So I want to thank you for all your hard work and dedication to making this happen yet again this year. So yeah, appreciate it very much. Thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Strobehn, for assisting the city getting that website up and running. Very good.
Chris Martin, 903 East 7th Street. I'm going to pass on Mountain Bike so you guys can follow along.
Thank you.
Thank Thank you.
Before I get to what I just passed out, I just want to comment on the timing of when the public comments are in the city council meeting, because I think before it was after the mayor's and attorney reports and also the staff reports, so that gave the public a chance to comment on those during the same council meeting, whereas now it's right in the beginning. So there's other things that can come up during the meeting that the citizens cannot address. So I just want to bring that up. Just something. And then also about the work session, the time was not noted that it started at 5:30 today anywhere on the city council on the agenda. It says city council meeting starts at 6:30, and the first item is the work session. So I don't know about that because other previous ones were noted at, they're usually at 5:30. So anyways, I just wanted to point those two things out. So about what I passed out, this is just my little research. I'm not an accountant, I'm an engineer, but I like to figure out, look how things work. So as I'm going through some of the budget and a lot of these numbers that have
Excuse me, this is actually an agenda item this evening, so I'm going to...
This is about this one right here, the 2019 budget amendment that was passed in June.
Oh, okay.
So when you guys were first presented with this information on the 12th of June, you can see here in the box, the red box noted A, those numbers were actually from the 2018 budget. In box B, the totals are wrong as they didn't include the last line item. And then in box C at the bottom, those numbers are swapped. The revenue should be the smaller one and the expenditure should be the larger one. Now, I understand that these things, there's errors, things get adjusted. But when the next council meeting, when you guys are actually going to be voting on this, you're presented with a vastly different table of budget numbers. I went through and reviewed the audio. There's no mention of there's being issues with these numbers. That, oh, things were removed. Oh, those were wrong last time. So as far as you know, the numbers are the same. So there's no, I don't know, there's not a lot of transparency on these numbers. Another thing, the budget amendment that was passed in June has not been put on the City of Bliss Center's website. In fact, the linked 2019 budget is the proposed but not the final. It does say it is the final budget, but when you actually open the link, it is the preliminary budget from end of last year. And there's nothing on there about the amended budget that was passed in June. So just an FYI. And then also from the budget numbers from the finance staff reports, there were two reports, one in August and one in October, and there's some pretty blatant issues with both of those. If you go to page 3, at the bottom here, the numbers that you're given, the total general fund revenue, that sum is incorrect. The total tax was added in twice, so you end up with a value that was basically twice as what it actually was for the actual numbers. And then for box B at the bottom for the expenditures, the sum is incorrect. The last line item was not added in, so it actually should be like 2.55 million. Excuse me. And then looking at the expenditures from those two reports, the August and the October one, you see 3.8 million for the budget numbers, 2.8 million, and then on the next page you got 3.5 million. Those are the budget numbers, and my understanding would be those numbers should be fixed because those were, whatever the 2019 budget is, and then when it changes to the amended budget, those numbers should be fixed. The actual numbers are the ones that usually change. Now, there's a reduction. The 3.8 million goes 3.5 million, but then when I look at the actual amended budget, it's actually 3.9 million. So it seems like there's a lot of inconsistencies between these numbers that are presented to you guys. And I'm concerned because I feel that you guys can't make accurate financial decisions for the city based off of numbers that are just, you're taking them as the gospel, and it's not necessarily the case. And I think that's a really big issue. There was one issue with the 2020 preliminary budget. I walked in about 10 minutes late for the work session, so I don't know if we covered it. But it seems like there's a little bit of a discrepancy between the 2020 general fund revenue and the general fund expenditures. There's a lot of errors with the stuff that's presented to you, and I don't like that. I feel like the city should be accurately, you guys seem to be questioning these things, and that's all I really implore you guys to do is to question, these numbers. Figure out why they're there. Other things, a couple other things real quick, I'm almost done. The city calendar hasn't been updated to show tonight's meeting, at least the calendar on the front page. There's nothing listed for Wednesday. And if you go to the one on Civic Web, it's just what I was talking about earlier. It only mentions the city council meeting at 6:30. Up until this morning, my wife's name was listed on page 6 as the deputy city clerk, and she hasn't worked in the city since July, so there's another thing, just proofreading. Things don't get taught, and I just don't understand that. And then also I want to point out, I don't have the sheet for it, but one of the levy calculations was off from last week's levy increase ordinance presentation. There's just a lot of errors. So. And just as an FYI, I did file a report with the state auditor earlier today about the budgets not being on the website and all that stuff. So, thank you.
Good. Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, seeing no one stepping up to the podium, we'll continue moving on. Next are council and staff reports. I do have a few things I want to share with the council this evening. Again, I want to thank Melinda Masna for being here this evening to talk about the Christmas festival. Appreciate that. I just want to bring to the council's attention that on Saturday, December 7th at 8:30 a.m. at the Vancouver City Hall, there'll be a AWC will be sponsoring a workshop for newly elected officers' official essentials. So there's a work session for new city council members on December 7th. And it's actually a great workshop. And if any of the council members would like to go, either as a new council member or as a refresher, I would strongly encourage you to do that. I think Councilmember Boff, you've been to it. Councilmember Stimmel, you went to it. So I think it's a good course.
Do you need to sign up for that, Mayor? Or
Yeah, if you
anyone
could
else?
just work with the city clerk and he'll get you signed up for that.
Thank you.
Okay. And then also I want to bring to the council's attention that at our next city council meeting, I don't know if you've been following in the newspaper or what have you, but C-Tran has actually been doing a wrap of individual buses. It's a theme for the cities throughout Clark County. I know Richfield has had theirs completed, and the city of Camas has had theirs completed, and the city of LaCentre's has been completed, and C-Tran will be bringing that bus to the city of LaCentre for the city council to view at the next city council meeting. So Councilmember Boff is our representative on C-Tran. Do you have anything to add, Doug? I know you've been in communication with C-Tran as well.
No, just that I'm excited to see this. It seems like we've been waiting almost a year for it, which I think we have. It's almost a year. And as the mayor mentioned, other communities have been represented with the wraps, and we're next in line. And when we got word last week that the center bus will be ready for display on the 11th, I believe it is, that's good news. And so I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. It's also exciting because as that bus travels around Clark County, it'll be promoting the city of LaCentre throughout the county, and I really like that.
Yeah. So it's something we can look forward to. I've asked Public Works Manager to cone off the side of the building here, so when the bus comes in, they can just pull right into those parking spots, and then we'll take time out of the next city council meeting to go out and view it. So,
They're going to let you drive, Doug?
I'm working on that.
okay, very good. And then I just also want to mention that the Public Works crew, they are busy putting up Christmas decorations throughout the community right now. It's starting to look really great, so I appreciate all the efforts and time that the city's putting into it. Looks like they're getting the Christmas tree decorated and some decorations around the roundabout, and get the decorations on the light posts on the bridge and what have you. So it's starting to look pretty good. Appreciate it. And then finally, I just want to mention that next Thursday is Thanksgiving. City offices will be closed Thursday, November 28th, and Friday, November 29th. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to wish City Council a very happy Thanksgiving, and if your Thanksgiving is going to include travels, please travel safe. It's hard to believe that Thanksgiving is already here this year, but here we are. So I also just want to wish the city staff a very happy Thanksgiving as well, and how much I appreciate all their hard work and good service. So thank you. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Dan Cairns, the city attorney, for attorney's report.
Sadly, I don't have a whole lot to report. The land use victory that we had at the Court of Appeals, of course, it's been appealed, and the request for review is in, and all of us have filed our responses as to why the Supreme Court shouldn't take review, and that's pending. The Supreme Court will figure out whether it's going to accept review or not in the next few months. So get comfortable. Shouldn't take too long. Should take a few months, no more than that.
Right.
And if they accept review, it could go on for years. If they don't, that's it. Party's over.
No appeal to the Supreme Court?
The U.S. Supreme Court?
Mm-hmm. No.
Well, if it's pending at the state Supreme
Oh,
Court
I'm
right
sorry.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I missed that
The
part.
review has been requested. It's
Got
discretionary.
it.
They take just a small percentage,
Okay.
maybe 10% of the cases requested. Really not that many land use cases. This doesn't really have any kind of really sexy issues that would attract their interest as
Okay.
statewide concern. It's more of a legislative fix is what our response is. If you have a problem with how this case turned out, it turned out the way the statutes said it should. Talk to the legislature. So I'll keep you posted, but I think we're safe through the end of the year on this one.
This won't have any effect on the development of the junction, will it?
I don't think that it will.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions for the city attorney? Okay, next are council comments. Councilmember Boff.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to wish a happy Thanksgiving to everyone. It's been a great year. I'm looking forward to the holidays, so be safe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stimmel.
No, just one thing, Mayor, thanks. Glad Melinda's here at the the first state football game last week. Smoking Frank's was out there serving food, and you guys gave free barbecue to all veterans. So that was really cool. Thank you. If I'd have known, I'd brought my dad. Put you out of business, but it's awesome to see Smoking Frank's out there. So thanks.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Williams.
Thanks, Mayor. Only thing I really have to report, a couple of things. First of all, Public Works. I saw the guys up putting the decorations today. It's a great small town. It's nice, doing a nice job. It looks good. It'll be a nice Christmas festival for us. Out on the railroad, we're going to start Saturday after Thanksgiving. I got my red suit cleaned and my beard's done, and I found out an interesting piece of economic news today. There's a shortage of Christmas trees this year, and it'll be an ongoing shortage. One of the Christmas tree farms where we buy our stuff for the railroad, we ordered 600 trees. I'm only getting 550. And he says, I won't have any more trees next year. There are brokers coming up in the area and buying up the trees and then reselling them. So there's even a shortage of seedlings right now, getting the seedlings to plant new trees, which take anywhere from 5 to 8 years to get up to market size. So, maybe it's a good business to get into, Anyway, that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Strobehn.
Yeah, I wanted to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and to touch bases on what Linda had said about the Christmas festival. Arnie is going to be bringing out his antique fire truck. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but there's some pictures of it on the site, or will be on the site. You guys should check it out. It's pretty neat. It's something special. And I implore everybody to get involved with it. It'll be a good time.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Cerveny.
I too would like to thank everyone for another great year. Thanksgiving kind of makes us all think about what we're grateful for. And I think we can all agree on one thing, that we love our community and we all come together to make it stronger and better each and every year. So I thank staff and the community and everyone involved with making this the community that we love. And happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Very good. So next we have staff reports. This evening we'll have 2 staff reports. The first one will be from Mr. Jeff Swanson, our Community Development Department. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. For the record, Jeff Swanson, I'm your Community Development Manager, Economic Development Manager, and I'm a consultant. So we'll go first through this narrative, and I'll move pretty rapidly this evening because we have a couple of public hearings coming up. So we've received McKay Esposito's report on the Community Development Department, and we're reviewing that. And we have also recently received some recommendations from Paul Lewis related to our building and development fees. And so we're going to take the recommendations from McKay Esposito and from Paul Lewis and develop a work plan for next year to implement those and execute on those. It will likely consist of lots of rewriting of code and development of a comprehensive fee schedule, which will cover all building development activities and some other business process improvements that are necessary. Talked about the TDS building a little bit in the last meeting, but they're continuing to prepare construction documents so that we can get the tenant improvements and deferred maintenance projects at that building out to bid here in the very near future. This evening, we have a amendment to the transportation improvement program related to the La Center Road, Timmon Road intersection that is on the agenda. So I'll leave the details of that one to Tony. We have a staff report that goes into far more detail than what I provided you here. But just as a reminder, we also have BKS Associates doing analysis at La Center Road and Paradise Park Road. We're completing some technical aspects of the Connor Harrison and Peterson annexation that came before council in August. OFM had some comments related to census information and legal descriptions of the properties, and so we're resolving those comments. And just a side note here at the bottom, very subtle, but development interest and inquiries have recently increased at Bow Center Junction with the Court of Appeals ruling on the comprehensive plan. So as I understand, Mr. Cairns provided some commentary, but as I understand it, the issues related to annexation of the areas of the junction are settled, and that the petition for review relates to other matters of the appeal. Is that correct? In other words, it's not the annexation actions that are necessarily being challenged in and of themselves.
To a certain extent, I mean, they were appealing everything. Our issue was Future-Wise wanted to make it kind of a state problem, illustrate a state problem, and so my feeling is they have to go down in flames as far as they can. So it'll still be at issue if this thing goes up. It's very unlikely the Supreme Court's going to bite, though.
Okay. And so as a result, we have a lot of interest in transactions of properties up at the junction. So I'm excited about that. I'll move on to the projects list here, and just draw your attention to number 5. I'll pull these up on a map because I think you'd rather see them on a map. So 5 is down here. We just recently received, just in the last few days, a 60% petition on the Schlentz annexation, so that'll be coming before council probably January, my guess. What do you think on that one? January?
I think that's a pretty good guess.
Okay. So we'll hear that annexation after the first of the year. Critical areas ordinance is coming before you this evening. And other updates, La Center Middle School, the Department of Ecology has issued a 401 permit, and the Army Corps of Engineers has said they're going to issue a 404 permit for the project, so they should be in a good place. They're moving forward. There's some critical areas review under city code that they need to go through, and so they're working through that aspect of the SEPA process. And I think they're very confident that that will go to construct next year. Let's see, still awaiting a technically complete plan submission for the Schwartz B&B. On the Riverside Estates project, we have off-site sewers under construction and phase 1 lots. 10 building plans have been approved there. And let's see, phase 3, which is the multifamily portion, the site, civil, and building plans have been submitted for review. And I believe that's the high points of the updates on projects. Any questions, council?
Thank you.
Do we know anything about number 8, as far as what type of franchise the restaurant or hotel might be?
We don't have that much detail about it. We just have their concept for the site, which involves, a convenience store, gas pumps, a drive-through fast food restaurant, about 16,500 square feet of single-level multi-tenant retail, and then about a 40 plus or minus 1,000 square foot hotel, around 100 rooms, 95 to 100 room hotel.
Okay. Thanks.
Other questions?
I have a question. Assuming the annexation takes place on, I have to get the name of the project, on Ivy.
Lens?
Yeah, the Schlitz. Assuming that happens, will 2nd Street be extended to the west? Because I know 2nd Street is, at this point, will dead end, will not go through to Ivy. But
That's a good question. I don't happen to know the answer to that. So
Okay.
I suppose it would depend on what they propose to develop on that property.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Good report. So the other staff report we have this evening is from the finance manager, Mr. Dustin Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The November Finance Staff Report. First off, the 2019 budget status. With the budget year 2019 winding down, the Finance Department has been working hard to finalize the accounting information for the city, and this is in preparation for 2 critical documents. First is preparation of the second and final amendment to the 2019 budget for the center, and that'll be presented at the December 11th, 2019 council meeting. And then also preparation of the Washington State Auditor submissions, which are due early in 2020. Staff are on schedule to complete all necessary work finalization of the accounting for 2019. And on the 2019 budget, I do want to note that the preliminary budget is indeed the final budget because on November 28th, the council held a public hearing on the preliminary budget and then approved that as the final budget. And a couple notes is that the amendment to the budget will adjust a few things that will be more closely matching with the presentation for the 2019, the 2020 budget comparison. So a lot of those things will tie together when you see them presented. But I do want to commend publicly the department staff and finance, Janice Feller and Lydia Feller, our temporary accountant, Amy Kerr, and the finance and accounting consultants, Christine Smith and Teresa Johnson, for their support to the city. It's been critical. I also want to thank the city management team for closely monitoring city operations and balancing the need of the city With the current budget challenges, I want to commend their thoughtful stewardship of public funds. 2020 budget process. The city is closely approaching the end of the budget development process for 2020. Tonight, the council will see this, will hold the second of 2 public hearings on the preliminary budget, with the final budget being presented in December. Scroll down a little bit. The City of La Center business license, just as an update, Ordinance 2019-21 amended La Center Municipal Code regarding business licenses. The finance staff are almost finalizing that transition process to the state for processing of those licenses. Next on my list is new finance staff member, and I'm happy to announce the addition of Micah Elliott as the new permanent member of the finance department in the position of accountant deputy city clerk, and he's sitting right over here in the purple shirt. Nice to meet you all. Mr. Elliott will be fulfilling a key role in finance with charge over the general ledger, chart of accounts, direct and indirect cost allocations, and supporting financial reporting. In addition to functioning as an accountant, Mr. Elliott will serve as a deputy city clerk. Mr. Elliott was previously an assistant state auditor of the Washington State Auditor's Office. In this position, he performed audits to ensure compliance with state laws, code of federal regulations, FARS cash, GAAP frameworks. Mr. Elliott was the Team Vancouver in the State Auditor's Office, the Team Vancouver fraud specialist, and also lien champion. He holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Business Administration with a concentration in accounting from Washington State University, and he and his family live in Battle Ground. So, welcome, Micah. Thank you. Last on my finance staff report is the breakdown of gambling tax for 2019. Still some stabilization. We didn't have quite as good of a month as the last 5, but we still have some stabilization with the courtrooms. And that is my finance staff report. Are there any questions?
What are we looking at coming in on the gambling tax there? I'm sorry, I didn't see it. At the end of year projections, are we on target?
We're pretty close to target. Yeah, it's hard to say what's going to happen in the last 2 months, but if you project out, we'll be pretty close to the 1.3. There's a lot of variables in there, so it's really hard to say.
Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions?
I would just like to take this opportunity to welcome Micah to the City of La Center. We're thrilled to have you here. So again, it's looking forward to working with you going forward, and I would definitely encourage the City Council when they have an opportunity to come by and visit with Micah a little bit, and I think you'll be impressed at his knowledge and his abilities. So if you can make that happen, that would be great. So thank you for the staff report.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay, this evening we have 3 public hearings on the agenda. The first one is for the Transportation and Capital Facilities Plan update, and Mr. Tony Cooper will be presenting to the council.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. This is an update to the Transportation Capital Facilities Plan, and it's under Ordinance 2019-25. So, as you might have remembered, we back in 2018, I think it was July, the Capital Facilities Plan was updated for a 20-year projection, and there was a revised traffic impact fee that resulted in that for new projects that were on that list. So one of these projects is the 4th Street widening between Cedar and Highland Avenue. And this includes the culvert replacement of Breezy Creek. This project was estimated to cost $4.4 million. And as you know, that the city just received a $1.5 million expenditure from the legislature that's going to be dispersed through the Department of Commerce. Another one of the projects on the Capital Facilities Plan is the Licetta Road, Timmon Road intersection. Now, that's listed under the 7 to 20 year range of projects. And it's estimated to cost $1.5 million as a roundabout. Now, there's a couple of options. It's either a roundabout or a traffic signal. The preferred option is a roundabout because it moves traffic a lot better than the signal would. So that's the preferred option. Since it's in the 7 to 20 year plan, it's not TIF eligible. So in order to collect revenue for this project in the future, a proportionate share cost based on PM peak hour trips was developed and has been a condition of several recent developments, proposed developments, Stevens Hillside development, Riverside Estates, which includes the housing development and the apartment complex, and then also Holly Park subdivision. Now, since there's a lot of development that could occur fairly quickly up at the junction, and so this project may be implemented somewhere in the near future, more than quicker than seven years. So this is why the city developed this proportionate share cost. And as you know, there's been some developers, especially the Stevens Hillside development, that has been they came to council a few times, and this is one of the things that they were questioning is the amount of cost for this proportionate share. So the city got DKS consultants to look at to update the 6-year plan and to basically since the project for Breezy Creek culvert replacement is estimated at $4.4 million, and the grant or the appropriated money is $1.5 million. The goal was to try to take the project from the Timmon Road and move that into the 6-year capital facilities plan to collect TIFs, and then reduce the Breezy Creek project by $1.5 million. So the result would be no net increase in the traffic, in the total project cost, and thereby keeping the TIF rate the same, 75.61. So that's what's proposed, and like I say, there's been a lot of developers that have recently been asking this question as far as the proportionate share. They have to pay TIF fees, and then on top of that, because of this proportionate share, they have to pay this too. So it's a big impact to developers. So this is an answer to try to build this project and collect TIFs in the future for this Timmon Road, Center Road project. And there will be no net increase in the cost of impact fees. Are there any questions?
Yep.
Yes.
This might take Jeff to be involved with it. How would this interact with the planned action area of the Timmons Road area? How would that interact together? Is that going to cause any complications or problems?
This action won't cause any complications or problems. So as the planned action area would study transportation element as part of that. So, but there's no impact necessarily to traffic impact fees.
Okay.
It's kind of an isolated issue that we're cleaning up.
Gotcha. All right.
I've got a question. Help me understand the accounting part of this. So the Breezy Creek project is projected to be about $4 million. I think we said 4.4, about 4. That would be offset by the $1.5 million grant that we've received, bringing it down to $2.5 million. Not looking ahead to the following year where there may be more grant money, but for what we know right now, so we've got $4 million brought down to $2.5 million.
Yes.
And if you divert that $1.5 million grant to another project, are we not back to $4 million for the Breezy Creek project? Just help me understand the transfer of these funds?
The estimated cost on the Breezy Creek project, as stated in the plan, is $4.4 million.
4.416.
So with the grant subsidizing the project from the state, it takes that project cost down to 2.9. As it
Exactly.
stands in the
Okay.
plan. What's not known is what construction is actually going to cost. And that's what the 1.5 million is going to fund work to do the design and environmental impact and get us through all the pre-construction
Okay.
so that we can figure out what it's actually.
So we're not diverting that 1.5 to the Timmon Road project?
No, the 1.5 goes to the East Fork Breezy Creek
So
project.
it's stated, right? It's
So
dedicated.
what that does is
Okay.
it lowers the overall
Understood.
cost of the set of projects that are in the 6-year plan. And so we have the opportunity to move the Timmon Road, La Center Road project into the 6-year plan. It's a $1.5 million project. And so we can move that into the 6-year plan, add a project without increasing the traffic impact fee rate.
Okay, got it.
If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Do you see any issues with moving that roundabout from the whatever 7 to 12 to 6-year, as far as the classification of that road and how many lanes it has into the future? Doing it too early and having to redo it again later, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Well, it would likely would be planned to facilitate widening if that does occur in the future. And they did that up actually at the junction. They did that same thing. They made the roundabout wide enough for 2 lanes, as I recall, and then they striped it so that you can kind of see that one of the lanes is striped so you can't access it. So they did actually plan for that up there. So it could be planned as far as this design as well. For the future, it would have to be planned for the future widening.
Okay.
So how much right of way that would take, we don't know. We would have to do a design, preliminary design to figure out if that would impact right of way. I know there's quite a bit of right of way up there with that Wilson Road. So it may or may not impact the right of way.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Cooper? Okay, thank you very much, Tony. So this is a public hearing. So at 7:15, I'd like to open it up to the public. If anyone would like to address the council on this ordinance, please step up to the podium, and if you'd give us your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing no one stepping up to the podium, I'll close the public comment period and turn it back over to the council for any discussion, questions, comments.
I love a roundabout over stoplights. I really do. It keeps things flowing. Ever since this one's been put in here, I think most of the city will agree. You're not sitting there for an hour waiting to turn left to get out of the town. So I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea. There you go.
Okay.
And seeing, Richfield's area out there, how they were putting them out in the middle of nowhere, and you questioned it at the time. You're driving out there, and now you're seeing them in use because of the development that's happening there.
Right.
So they make a lot of sense.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion? Oh, go ahead.
I noticed there's a couple blanks on the draft ordinance that's in your packet, and so I corrected those, and we have a corrected version of the ordinance that's more appropriate for adoption. So, for example, the approved and adopted part is kind of blank at the end.
Right here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How many days did that take effect?
The 31st day after adoption.
Okay.
So we have a corrected version that that Dustin can print off. It's on the screen, in fact.
Was there anything significant to change, or is it just housekeeping stuff?
It was the adoption, approved and adopted, so it's set for today's date. Remember, this has moved a bit on the schedule. And I think, you scroll down, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's scroll down, see the recitals. 1, 2. I think the recitals are the same. So it's just correcting that aspect of it. So if you're inclined to approve this, it would be the corrected ordinance, and we'll have that ready for signature at the end of the meeting.
Mayor, I move the City Council adopt ordinance, the corrected version of ordinance 2019-25 to revise the 6-year transportation plan.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for the council to adopt ordinance 2019-25 to revise the 6-year transportation plan. This is an ordinance, so if I get a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Boff,
Yes.
Councilmember Stimmel,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Councilmember Strobehn,
Yes.
Councilmember Cerveny.
Yes. Yes.
The ordinance passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Thank you, Tony. Good report. Jeff, thank you. Thanks, Dan. So the next public hearing we have this evening is on the critical areas ordinance. And this evening, this will be presented by Mr. Ethan Spoo with WSP. And Mr. Spoo is the city's contract city planner. Thank you for being here. And also with him this evening is one of his associates or colleagues, Dustin Day as well. So, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. And as the Mayor said, my name is Ethan Spoon. I'm the city's consulting planner. And I did bring with me Dusty Day, who's sitting against the back wall. He is a natural resource scientist. And so he's here to assist me with any questions that you might have. This particular item was workshopped last night. And so I won't go into a lot of repetition about in terms of the presentation in terms of what was discussed, but I did want to hit on a couple of high points of that presentation for the public and those of you who maybe couldn't be here. So the city is required to update its development regulations, including its critical areas ordinance, every 8 years. That deadline was 2016. It's come and gone. The Department of Commerce understands that we're late. They understand that we're working on the update, and we've kept them apprised of our progress, and they seem satisfied with that. They've provided comments to us earlier in the project. Just real quickly, critical areas are wetlands, fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas, frequently flooded areas, geologic hazards, critical area aquifer and critical aquifer recharge areas, and then buffers around some of those areas are also protected. There's a number of critical areas maps on the city's website. There's 3 of them that you can find on the city's website, but you can also find this information on Clark County Maps online. If you have any questions about those maps, let me know. I want to back up there one, Dustin. You want to go forward?
I don't know how to go backwards in
Okay.
PDF mode.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe go this way.
I think that's it. That was the slide.
This one?
Yeah.
Does that work?
Nice animation, right? All right. So there's 3 types of changes that we made to the ordinance. Updates for best available science and state guidance. And then Planning Commission directed changes, and those were mainly related to the updates in the first category, things that we ran across. And then just general document improvements, grammar, formatting, and so forth. We tried to limit the scope quite a bit, and so we're not trying to overhaul the ordinance. The ordinance that you have today is essentially the ordinance that you would have if this were to be adopted, so the changes are relatively minor in nature. So let's take a look at what some of those changes are. More specifically, some of the highlights. We modified some of the definitions, especially for the different types of critical areas, and I mentioned this last night, for fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas, landslide hazards, erosion hazards. Some of those definitions were not in your ordinance, so we put them in there for the assistance of staff and applicants. As you know, single-family homes are the most dominant land use within the city, so that was one area that of revision in the critical areas ordinance that we wanted to call out to your attention. The previous critical areas ordinance had a blanket exemption for single-family uses, and so that did not require any kind of critical areas review to develop a single-family home on an individual existing lot within critical areas. The city, under its state mandate, is required to protect the functions and the values of critical areas, and so our advice and recommendation to the city is that you remove that from the exemption category and require at least some kind of review of those types of uses. And that was also something that the Department of Ecology picked up on and had commented and generally agreed that developing those types of uses in critical areas would impact them, and they should be reviewed and mitigated for appropriately. Critical aquifer recharge areas, you did not have any existing standards for hydrogeological reports in your code, and so we've inserted those standards so staff and applicants know what to submit in those reports. And you also don't have hardly any standards for geologically hazardous areas, and so we've provided some standards for those as well. Essentially, your ordinance right now just says that you have to submit a geotechnical report from a geologist or an engineer if you are developing in geologically hazardous areas. And so now we're providing some of that guidance about what to do in those areas, including buffering from the top of the slope. Lastly, we did update some provisions related to wetlands. So there's some exempt wetland categories. For Category 4 wetlands, less than 4,000 square feet, or any wetland that's under 1,000 square feet, and so those don't, impacts to those don't need to undergo review, but you still, but the applicant would still have to mitigate for those impacts. There's an updated wetland rating system based on Ecology's 2014 updated guidance that's out there, and those are updates that are occurring throughout the state in different jurisdictions as critical areas ordinances are updated. And your wetland mitigation ratios are also being updated. I said lastly that there's one of residential density transfer. We talked about that a little bit last night, and so we're revising the density transfer as an incentive to protect critical areas, and so we're allowing for 100% transfer of density out of critical areas to non-critical portions of the site. Now, there is a practical limitation on that because the zoning code only allows for reduction of lot sizes to 6,000 square feet, and again, that was something that we discussed last night. But what we're doing here with this change is essentially taking a step so that in the future, if the city decided that it wanted to adjust its lot sizes and density transfers, that in the zoning code that this would already be in place. All right, with that, let me know if you have any questions. And again, Dustin is also here to help answer.
Very good. Thank you.
Just a quick question. I realize we're a couple years behind in making this update, but is it possible that implementing these updates now could cause delay or issues with the school, who's, we just learned are working their way through Department of Ecology and Corps of Engineers? Is there any possibility it could cause issues there with changes?
So they had a recent pre-application meeting, I think it was roughly 2 weeks ago, week and a half maybe, and we made them aware of the changes that were coming forward. And so I believe that their intent is to submit documents that meet the new critical areas ordinance. And should you choose not to adopt the critical areas ordinance tonight, that would still be okay because their report would essentially be exceeding the city's existing standards. So I don't think it will cause any issues.
Sorry for not thinking about that last night.
No, that's fine.
Okay. I've got a question, and I want to digress just a little bit. I was looking at the city's website on land use applications, and I came across the Faust application. And for those any who are interested, I read your report. It's a good example of the kind of amount of work that goes into gathering the data for that kind of report. But it made me curious as to what triggered the need for that report, since it's a single-family residence, like 2,800 square feet. Why was the report mandated for that project?
Right. So there was some other associated uses with that single-family use, particularly a long driveway coming off of Pacific Highway that required grading and fill and so forth in critical areas. That falls under a different trigger, basically, that then triggered the critical areas review.
Okay. Is it mainly because of the grading and the long driveway?
Grading the long driveway.
Triggered
There's
that?
also a culvert that they're putting over that stream.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. That's a good report. I can see that a lot of work went into that.
Thank you. And so, just for a quick update on that project just had a notice of decision issued today for it, so they have it in hand.
Very good. Any other questions for Mr. Spool? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So again, this is a public hearing, so at 7:30, I will open it up for the public hearing. If anyone would like to address the council regarding this ordinance, please step to the podium, and if you give us your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Okay, seeing no one stepping up to the podium, I'll close the public comment period and turn it back over to the council for further discussion or comments.
Crickets.
Well then, if the council's inclined, we can move forward with a motion.
Mayor, I propose that we adopt ordinance 2019-26, an ordinance amending Title 18 of the Development Code of the La Center Municipal Code to revise Chapter 18 critical areas in compliance with the city's state mandated requirements under the Growth Management Act and consistent with best available science.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt ordinance 2019-26. This is an ordinance. If we could please get a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Boff,
Yes.
Councilmember Stimmel,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Councilmember Strobehn,
Yes.
Councilmember Cerveny.
Yes.
The ordinance passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Thank you very much, Mr. Boone. Dustin, thank you for your time. Okay, our third and final public hearing this evening is for the 2020 Civil Center budget, and that'll be presented by Mr. Dustin Bailey, our finance manager. No action will be taken on the budget this evening. This is just the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The City of Center's 2020 preliminary budget was made available to the City Council and to the public on November 5, 2019. The 2020 preliminary budget includes a draft of the Mayor's budget message highlighting key aspects of the 2020 preliminary budget and related initiatives and policy issues. A copy of the 2020 preliminary budget can be found on the City's main page. RCW 35A 33055 requires that the City of Center conduct a public hearing on the proposed budget prior to adopting the final budget. The City continues to face a structural budget deficit. To address this, the Finance Department staff worked with the City managers to develop 2020 departmental budgets utilizing a zero-based budget methodology. The zero-based budgeting method is one of developing a budget from scratch or zero-based. That means we did not include the 2019 budget as a consideration, but more as a comparative document. And in this, we examine every cost and expense to see if they're essential to operations without regard to the prior year's activities. No activities are assumed untouchable, and all expenses are judged and must be justified in order to stay in the budget. So it's a very regimented process and time-consuming, but well worth it considering our budget situation with the city. The finance staff and the mayor analyzed the zero-based budget numbers with the assistance of the La Center Budget Advisory Committee. And I do want to recognize the Budget Advisory Committee, if that's okay, Mayor.
Absolutely.
So citizens who participated on the Budget Advisory Committee are Jack Davis, Deanna Sutter, Steve Workman, City Council members, Councilmember Cerveny, and Councilmember Williams. So two of the citizens are actually present in this meeting today, so thank you for your attendance. Key steps in the 2020 budget process included 3 City Council work sessions on the draft preliminary budget, 10 meetings with the City's Budget Advisory Committee, which included council members and citizens, as I just mentioned, to review the baseline, assess budget balancing options, and review the draft. Public hearing on the revenue sources included in the 2020 preliminary budget as required by state law was held at the last council meeting. So, after producing the preliminary budget, RCW 35A 33060 requires the city to publish a notice once a week for 2 consecutive weeks starting, stating that the 2020 budget is available for review and setting a date for the hearing. City published required notices, which was set November 20 as the date for the public hearing today. And a summary of the proposed 2020 budget for each city fund is attached to this agenda item. So, the staff report's pretty long. I'm not going to read the whole entire thing to you. But going through at a high level, the 2020 budget continues existing city services and service levels, makes targeted investments in expanding the city's infrastructure. The proposed general fund budget is $3.953 million. The proposed sewer operating final budget is $1.09 million. And the proposed stormwater final budget is $161,000. The total budget, not including capital expenditures, is $5.209 million. The 2020 preliminary budget proposes a balanced operational budget, so operating the city is balanced. But it does not include proposed capital improvements for 2020 in the amount of $1.648 million. For capital projects, vehicle equipment funds, $450,000 for sewer capital fund, and $12,500 for the stormwater equipment fund. I should scroll down way past this. So, some marked significant accomplishments 2019 and the 2020 preliminary budget. One is the sewer line, the junction sewer line, which services the I-5 junction. The new La Center Middle School, the city is working in partnership with the school district on land use, building permits for the new middle school, which would be the largest development project in the city's recent history. The new roundabout, 4th Street and La Center Road, was finalized in 2019 and has successfully smoothed traffic flow through one of the city's main intersections. New residential development is something we've talked about several times, but just to reiterate, the city is on pace to issue over 100 building permits in 2019, which is more than 2016, 2017, and 2018 all combined. The city is projected to add 180 new single-family homes in 2020. For the revised card room tax structure, 2019, the city worked with the card rooms to implement and codify a sliding scale tax structure, recognizing economic challenges facing the card rooms. Notably, police officer awards. One of the center's police officers received an American Police Hall of Fame Life-Saving Award in 2019 for his sacrificial, unselfish efforts in an emergency situation that saved someone's life. Next, the purchase of the TDS building, which will be the new city hall, and the new city hall will house all administrative city functions with the intent of providing enhanced efficiencies and higher level customer service, and we expect to occupy the new city hall early 2020. As the center enters 2020 poised for growth in a responsible and fiscally conservative manner that preserves the community values and continues quality city services. A number of initiatives in 2020 that are notable: streamlining city staffing, public works manager oversees public works, and the wastewater treatment plant operation, eliminating one full-time position without impacting services. The deputy city clerk function was absorbed into the finance department, with tasks of this position being split between the finance manager and one accountant position. The city is finalizing discussions with organized labor to standardize administrative support job descriptions, which will allow for more flexibility to back up each other and support multiple areas. We hope that that results in a cost-effective and efficient support to city departments. And wastewater treatment plant staffing will continue to have 3 with the required certifications to operate the plant independently, allowing the plant, which never shuts down, to all with the ability to work more independently and with higher certifications. Operational efficiencies. 1, the city has implemented several operational improvements, the most significant being the listener purchasing policy in 2019. The policy has both increased staff efficiencies by centralizing the city's purchasing operations and finance department, reducing redundancies mostly, and has allowed the city to more effectively utilize volume discounts, bulk purchases, and leverage state and county contracts. This budget does not include an increase in monthly sewer rates, so the sewer rates will remain flat in this budget as it has been in several previous budgets. So moving on to targeted infrastructure improvements. In the 2020 budget, Holly Park Community Center, playground, tennis courts improvements, parking lot paving, sunshade, and field drainage improvements. We included the Stone Creek Drive pavement reconstruction. Calling out replacement of aging playground equipment, several parks throughout the city. The public works staff did an assessment and found some of those pieces of equipment to not be standard, have some unsafe elements, so replacement of those is in the budget. And then we also considered studies for some roundabouts, but those are being pushed to the next calendar year budget. Community marquee sign. The city replaced the aging non-functioning community sign in 2019, and we're working with community groups to make sure that events and city functions are listed on that marquee. Enhanced stormwater water facility maintenance. The City Council approved the implementation of the stormwater utility fee in 2019. Enterprise fund will be used solely for the design, construction, and maintenance of the city's growing stormwater infrastructure, which shifts some of the burden from the general fund and also from the stormwater, or from the sewer. And economic development, and more detailed plans for commercial mixed-use development will be pursued at I-5 Junction and Tillman Road, West Center Road intersection. And we have a planned action area included in the budget, which is a multi-year project to create an overall roadmap for developing and enhancing the city downtown and Tillman Road areas. So attached to this staff report are some documents that include the budget, which we've included in several work sessions with the council, so I won't go through those in detail unless the council has questions about them. But the recommended action tonight is the city council will hold a public hearing to consider public feedback on the city's preliminary 2020 budget. Any questions?
Very good. Thank you. Okay, if there's no questions or any further discussion by the council, I'll open up the public hearing at 7:45. If any citizen would like to address the council regarding the 2020 budget, please step up to the podium. If you would give us your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Chris Martin, 903 East 7th Street. Can you pull up the tables with the budget on it, please? And it's the bottom of page 5. So bottom of page 5, top of page 6, if you can keep scrolling down a little bit more, please, but back up. There. So this is part of my included in the handout that I brought out earlier, but I just wanted to point out there is an issue with the numbers there. The top at the 2020 revenue and expenditures, 3.978 and 3.953 with the surplus deficit of 25,000. If you go down to the 2020 budget down below there, you can see the numbers that are different for the revenues and expenditures, 4 million and 3.98. With the net revenue, that's like $5,800, whereas it says it's $25,000. So I just wanted to point that out. That is a
Very good.
issue with that.
Thank you. Seeing no one else stepping up to the podium, I will close the public hearing and open it back up to council for any more discussions. Any more discussion, questions, comments, concerns?
Go for it.
So I do have a couple of questions and concerns, and I didn't get to bring those up. I did get some questions answered in some of the workshops that we've had. The replacement of the police vehicles. I understood what Chief Denny had said. Do we really need 5 police vehicles in a city of this size? Because I do see a lot of them sitting most of the time when I drive by.
Well, unfortunately, Chief Denny is not here this evening. He's absent and excused, so I think he would be the most appropriate person to answer that question.
Okay.
But I can tell you the council's had many discussions with the chief regarding the vehicles and the number of vehicles and the reason for having that number of vehicles. So the chief will be gone for several days, but when he gets back, I'll make sure that he reaches out to you and you can ask him those questions specifically.
Then I'll save my other one for him as well.
Okay. I don't know if the council has any comments on that particular issue as far as police vehicles go, or?
Was your other question about the value of the two being sold, only being 9,000?
Yeah, that and also the mileage being down at 60 to 65,000 miles. From what I'm researching, even just sitting here on some of this, the average across the U.S. is 100,000. And, you know, that's a 35 to 40,000 mile difference. If you start adding that up, it's a lot of money that we could be saving and holding off and getting a little bit more time out of these cars.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I'll let the chief address that. I just know that the issue with the police vehicles is not so much like he talked about last time you were discussing that with him, is it's not just a function of the total miles driven for those vehicles, but the number of hours that they operate. Once the officers, because of the computer systems and what the officers use for their daily shifts, the vehicles are never shut off, so they run a lot more than they do put miles on them.
Right, I'm just looking at what I'm seeing across the net right now, you know, and they're saying the same thing. Police cars are
So how
running
many
a lot.
hours are they putting on those cars?
There was 100 to 300 miles in a shift, and they could be running anywhere from 10 to 14 hours. So.
Good.
One thing to keep in mind, though, sometimes police vehicles will get sold from one agency to another, to another, to another, too. Which puts a lot of miles on them. And cities that don't have a lot of funds tend to buy vehicles that have been passed down through a couple of agencies. And I know that from when I was working in the mobile communication industry. We used to see that.
Okay.
All right. Then, yeah, I'll talk to the chief on that. The other thing was a forklift. I didn't even notice it, which is my bad. The forklift. We need a forklift in public works.
The wastewater treatment plant.
Or wastewater.
Yeah, currently we have a Bobcat. That was purchased very long ago here. Its primary function down there is a forklift.
A dog cat?
Yeah. They don't function very well as a forklift. We've
Not a
been
nice
due
one.
for a long time, but we're at the point now that we can get, I think, a good amount of money back on surplus. It's low hours. It's incredibly clean because it's only been used as a forklift. And forklifts are relatively inexpensive compared to that and highly useful. We had to rent one to extract ponds. The guys will be able to go vertical with our stock and get into places that the Bobcat just can't operate. So,
Yeah. No, that's completely justified.
With relation to the forklift, there's going to be one slight change to the budget between this and the final because there's been some revised calculations of the cost based on the need. So it'll be 15.5. Is that what we talked about, Matt?
15 is what I'm saying.
So just like the increase of 3,000 or so?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the expenditure for the purchase of that is solely out of the stormwater or the sewer fund.
And the reason,
Apologize.
to clarify the difference, the reason on that is that 3,000 will give us lower hours, and I'm looking at an electric forklift. And so that the useful life of those batteries goes down pretty significantly with higher hours, and the replacement cost of those batteries is a lot more than 3,000. So if we can go lower on a forklift, we'll be using this.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be plenty of other questions before we vote on it, so.
Well, this would be the time to ask them. I mean, so if there's any adjustments or anything that we need to make, I mean, this would be a good time.
To talk about making adjustments?
Yeah.
So are we going to keep everything that's on that project list then? Is that kind of where we're at then?
Are you making some suggestions? Is there
No, I'm
some-
asking the council if they're okay with everything that's sitting on that capital projects fund budget list here.
I'm okay with it.
Matt, if we took that repaving and made it more of a patch job, I feel like that's what you were referring to by keeping it in-house. Would it still be $116,000? What would be a likely cost?
No, it'd be quite a bit less. Tony and I've been looking at that, and if we just tackled the center aisle.
I think that's what we're talking about, is really just the center aisle is the part that's really has been degraded. The parking stalls aren't really in bad shape. It's just the drive aisle. So we're proposing to excavate some of the bad areas and then pave that drive aisle.
So since you're here now, I don't want to go down another rabbit trail, but I'll ask this real quick.
Okay.
Engineer to engineer. If we're building 180 houses next year, 100 this year, that park's going to see a whole lot more traffic. Has there been any thought to making the traffic go one way through because of the narrow entry off of 4th and maybe changing the parking to angled parking and saving this project for later?
Excuse me, Tony, could you please get up to the podium and speak in the mic so we get this on the record? And
I've thought about it. I mean, I'm not sure if the angled parking would work. We have to look and see how much there is in the driveway to be able to turn and do that. Change the configuration of it is what you're talking about. And then change the entryway so you go in one way and then come out the next way. Yeah, we haven't really looked at that. We can to see if there's enough room to do that.
I'm just curious if it's worth pushing this off a year and sometime in the next year spending some time thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, Matt and I have to talk about this. There's options. We could do some temporary repair on it and just to hold it for a while, and just excavate, maybe do some of the bad areas, really bad areas, and just hold off on it and just until we can, do something better.
Just curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
Tony, you weren't here for the work session, so there was some conversation about the repairs to that parking lot area or the driving portion of the parking lot area.
Yeah.
I think Councilmember Williams and
I drove through it, I didn't see that, I saw a couple bad spots in there, but
Yeah.
I didn't see enough to was that 116,000 to rip out the center aisle? Or
Just the
the-
center aisle, to do a lot of R&R replacement. And I was looking at areas that were just starting to crack, alligator, just to get those. Sometimes if you don't address those early, you can have problems if you just overlay it. So the cost was to excavate and replace some of those bad areas with base, and then saw cut and basically just pave that whole section, kind of, replace that with just that section in there. So it was to do really to pave and then just do some R&R work. Yeah, it doesn't go. Yeah, it's really costly to do R&R and the paving. It's really, I mean, just the pavement repair that we did on those few streets, that was $60,000. So
Since you brought that up, I kind of looked at that. That didn't really look like a $60,000 worth of work to me.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't seem to seal the edges or anything. Looks like they cut it and dug it out.
They do need to seal the edges, but it does. It just doesn't go very far. When you have a small project like that, the problem is that when you have smaller projects, your overhead goes up on some of those items, and larger projects, the unit costs drop, and so it's the smaller projects that sometimes they cost a lot, just because they're highly, a lot of labor in it.
So by doing those smaller projects, though, does that help us delay in having to do the entire area? Did that help?
Yes. Yeah, and that's the kind of, you're talking about the pavement preservation that we did.
Right.
Yes, just the really bad areas is what we tried to tackle.
So you get around the city quite a bit, driving around and seeing some of the roads. Is there any other roads or other patch areas that we can put this $116,000 to that'd be better used than putting it in a parking lot?
Center Road, just that section going out of town. There's a part that dips in there. It's probably about a 160-foot section that dips. That's been settling for years, and it really needs to be reconstructed. In fact, we tried to get a grant from TIB to do that repair, and we were unsuccessful. So we won't have money next year to do that from TIB. But so we can use part of it for pavement preservation to fix that. But
Is $116,000 enough money?
not to pave the whole thing.
160 feet or whatever? Is that what you're saying?
No, it probably would be enough to reconstruct that one portion. Like I say, it doesn't go far when you do a small section like that.
Right.
So I think it'd probably be enough to do that section in there. But we have money for pavement preservation next year, but I don't, we have to determine where the best use of that money would be.
Right, but if we're determining that we're going to put $116,000 in a parking lot, that can actually go and help do that type of stuff.
Yeah, that can be. And then if we can do some minor repairs in the parking lot now, just.
To suffice and get it, put a Band-Aid on it for a while.
Right.
Tony, you talked about the economy of scale or mobilization, whatever. On tagging on what Tom said, working on the dip out on the center road. What if we did that at the same time we did Stone Creek reconstruction? With the same, make that a two-part project.
We could. The thing about the center road is it's got a lot of traffic, and so you're going to spend a lot of traffic control. That's a big cost right there. It's just traffic control just to get that part reconstructed.
You just said that there's probably enough to fix that.
There's probably enough to fix it. So if we want to try to combine those two, and the unit cost may drop a little bit on the center road project. That's a possibility. Yeah, but they're two different locations. So
I understand, but they're both here in town.
Yes.
And you would I don't think you need two job offices for places that are less than 5 minutes apart.
No, they could probably stage everything in one place and then just work from there.
Stage it right down by the bridge.
Yeah.
And if we wait till after school's out of session, the lower parking lot would also be available too.
Yeah. Well, where the contractor stages, that's it's hard to know, but they're going to need something. And usually the area where it's wide right there, just over the bridge, that gravel area is a good place for them to stage.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks.
Sure.
Could I make one comment about the La Center Road discussion? The reason we chose to defer that, you can see it's in the 2021 list, is a lot of the damage to La Center Road is being caused by truck traffic that's being rerouted off of the freeway. And so we decided that we were going to work on discussions with the state and the county to determine if there's any funding sources that we could get for assistance, because that's an impact on our city that we're not gaining anything from, and it's because they're rerouting that truck traffic. So we're exploring other avenues for funding that project, and that's why it was pushed back a year.
So that's another thing that Tony looks on as a continuum, is what would qualify for potential grants and other funding sources. And that's La Center Road. I think the city will continue to try to find a grant to get that done. We have applied for several grants for Stone Creek, and it's been unsuccessful. The road continues to deteriorate. And again, the asphalt, when it starts to break down and it does the alligator cracking and water and moisture get in there, it really accelerates it. It starts to deteriorate a lot faster. Again, Tony's the one that does the analysis and works with Matt, and I think they do a pretty thorough job of doing their assessments and making the recommendations. Again, we can sit here all night long and decide what should or shouldn't be done based upon each one of our opinions, but overall, in the long run, it's going to have to be done. All these projects, so.
Right, but that's why we're sitting here, is discussing to see which one we're going to throw on there. So, you know, I like the sound of it, but I wasn't aware that you guys are trying to pursue it in 2019 for grants and such. But have you guys ever pursued that before for any type of grants in the past?
Well, the problem is like federal grants. We compete for the SDP rural funds for federal grants, which is against Richfield, rural Clark County. That grant doesn't come up. It comes up every few years for the rural grant. You know. So it doesn't come up very often as far as the funding. So when it comes up, we try to look at some big projects. The roundabout in 4th Street, that was one of them we got money for, but it was in 2014, I believe. And so every few years that comes up. TID offers grants every year for materials, but you're competing against a lot of other jurisdictions. And it's whoever submits the best application that gets the grants. So there's a lot of options. It's just, it's uncertain whether or not you're going to get one or not.
Okay.
You mentioned that you're looking for grant money for La Center Road because of the increased truck traffic for detours.
Yeah.
Is that just going to be a permanent thing? Or are they going to fix the bridge, upgrade the bridge?
Maybe Mr. Swanson can address
yes,
that.
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
There we go. Get him up there.
So this, you may be aware that the state for some time has weight limited the bridge over the East Fork on Interstate 5. And the high loads, the wide loads, the long loads are fine. It's the overweight loads that are coming on city streets going through town, and we're seeing the wear on our local streets from years and years of that. There is no mitigation in effect. There's no way that has been established to mitigate for that impact from the state system on the local system. And so this is kind of the poster child for getting an earmark from the state through an effective narrative and some lobbying. So that is one of the things. Mayor and I will be going up with Mr. Halverson on Friday to Olympia to meet with some of our legislators, including Representative Fye, who is the chair of the Transportation Committee in the House. And we're going to thank everybody for the $1.5 million for East 4th and Breezy Creek project, and keep that in the forefront of their mind as we complete the pre-construction. We're going to need help with the construction part of that project, but we're going to tell them about some of our other woes here, including the heavy truck traffic coming through the middle of the center.
Is that both directions on the I-5 bridge as a restriction, or just southbound?
I think it's just the northbound
Northbound?
bridge.
I think it is,
That is
yeah.
weight limited, if I understand
I think
correctly.
it is, I think it is north. It's weight, I think there's a oversized limitation on that one too. So they route oversized loads and I think overweight loads. But Clark County would know because they're the ones that route them.
I saw an oversized going through town the other day. He had a lot of fun with the roundabout.
Because if I
Yeah, they
remember
do.
right, the northbound side is a steel truss span, and the southbound side is a box girder design, open box girder.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that they've been talking about fixing that. So I don't know where WashDOT is with it, but I just don't know the logistics of it, but I just know one direction is the problem. Yeah.
So the compelling story is, hey, there's a state system, and you haven't funded the fix, and you're impacting our jurisdiction, and we don't have the funds to
Tearing up our roads, so
fix
let's
the roads.
try to get some assistance, so.
Help us out here.
Toll bridge.
You see, we have holes in our pants, and we have tin cup, so
If you look at the WashDOT
And a tough
website,
city council.
if you look at the WashDOT website, you'll see that bridge has got a worse rating than the interstate bridge does.
well, I think either one of them, if we hit them in the right spot,
Yeah.
with some kind of accident, it's going to come down.
Well, if they couldn't come through our town, the detour is pretty damn long. I mean, if you had to take 503 all the way around, that'd be a long ride.
And sometimes those trucks don't quite understand they need to go up Aspen, and so they try to navigate the roundabout, and seeing some of the effects of that as well.
Yeah, well, we're actually working on it. I think Matt and I, and I think DKS are working on some details.
Excuse me, Tony, would you please get
Sorry.
up and go to the mic?
Sorry.
Again, we got to get this on the record.
Those sitting online.
So, we have looked at signs that would route, detour signs that would route trucks down the directions that they can maneuver. Northbound Pacific Highway, turn right on 4th Street, and then turn left up Aspen Avenue instead of continuing north. So there is some signage that we're going to implement here in the near future to try to get traffic to go the direction that they should go, truck traffic, to maneuver that roundabout the way it better.
Just to satisfy my curiosity, the $900,000 for the La Center Road repair, and then saying $116,000 would do it. We're talking about a significant portion for the $900,000, right? A lot bigger than that small footprint.
So, yeah, Tony, you've got $900,000 budgeted for the entire repair to the Center Road from the bridge out to Timmins.
Oh, no, that doesn't seem right.
We talked about a larger stretch of La Center Road.
Okay, up from the bridge to, where was it again?
I don't remember the terminus, but it was a larger stretch than that
Okay.
small portion that you were just talking about.
Okay, yes. We'll have to look at that. Because I know there's a section from the bridge to Timber Road. And I don't think it was quite that high, but I'll have to look at it, just to make sure. Yeah.
Anyway, that's budgeted for next year, but okay. I mean, for 2021. Okay.
The state paid for it anyway.
I love it. Great attitude.
Like the wall.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Any other discussion regarding the 2020 budget? I think now would be the time to get some of these things out. So when we get to it next week, if any adjustments have to be made, we can be prepared for that, for the adoption, the next city council meeting.
I'm going to take some time to think. I'll review some of my notes and some of my thoughts. I'll send out an email or something at that point, if that's how you guys want to go about it.
The Matt's thing about the forklift, I think that's good because that's a safety thing too.
Yeah.
Using a Bobcat with forks on it is not safe. So I think it's good.
So Councilmember Cerveny just pointed out that if you are going to do this by email, do not send it to the entire council. Just send it to city staff and you'll get your question answered. We can't have a dialogue on the,
Sure.
through emails, okay? Yeah. Okay. Everybody good with that? Well, with that, then, we can move on to the next agenda item, which is adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for being here, everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you, Linda.